welcome AUL President and CEO, Dr. Charmaine Yoest.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's a remarkably humbling greeting to me, because I want to start us off tonight by thanking you all so much from the bottom of my heart. This is the group of people that has made 40 years of Americans United for Life possible. And if it wouldn't keep us here all night, I would like to be able to read off each and every name of every single one of you who's here tonight. If you'll bear with me for a few minutes, so there are a few more special people I'd like to recognize. First, thanking you, Senator Sessions and Congresswoman Elmers and Senator Hatch. Thank you so much. Carly and Frank, thank you for being here. Brent and Norma, thank you so much for being here. Jay and our whole AUL board, who are all here. And I'd also like to introduce my family. I'm so thrilled that my mom and dad are here. My husband Jack and all 5 of my kids are here tonight. If you see John, wish him luck on his AP US History exam tomorrow. He's studying underneath the table. Well, as we are gathered here tonight to mark this milestone, our purpose is to pay tribute to this remarkable heritage that we build on and the persistence and unyielding determination that have brought us this far, while resolving together to remain steadfast as we run this race. It really is a remarkable, remarkable time to be taking stock. Just this year, we've seen 28 pro-life bills passed across this country based on our model legislation. Then 28. As Renee mentioned, we released a report this summer that served as a comprehensive indictment against Planned Parenthood. And then this remarkable congressional launch of an unprecedented official investigation into the abortion giant. There are more unheralded achievements. After our own Denise Burke spent a full decade defending Arizona's clinic regulation law, we finally saw victory this past year. Included in your program are 40 years of accomplishments we've seen, victories that you have made possible. This includes defending the Hyde Amendment before the Supreme Court, defeating the attempt to establish a Roe v. Wade of assisted suicide, and defeating the attempt to reground the abortion right in the Equal Protection Clause. I'm also deeply proud of our legal contribution to defining the personhood of the unborn baby. Few people know that Clark Forsythe was one of the intellectual architects of fetal homicide laws which dramatically advance the defense of the personhood of unborn babies, and we've seen them enacted in 37 states. These victories were launched by our founders 40 years ago with a simple ad in the New York Times entitled "A Statement of Dissent." This was 2 years before Roe v. Wade, and already they saw the storm clouds building toward a culture of death. I've recently hung a far less sophisticated statement of dissent in my office. It is, however, decidedly cheerful, as a very blue elephant named Horton proclaims, "A person's a person, no matter how small." Instantly recognized as truth by even the youngest among us, I love this simple, elegant affirmation that speaks to the heart of AUL's vision and mission, which was beautifully expressed by our former board member, and you've heard it several times tonight, the late Father Richard John Newhouse. We are working towards a nation where everyone, every person, is welcomed in life and protected in law. Throughout history, whenever those in power have wanted to assert their dominance and pursue a culture of death, they begin by defining their victims as outside the community of caring, beyond human compassion, ostracizing them as the other. A person becomes subhuman, or an inferior race, or a blob of tissue morally equivalent to a tonsil. In working to defend the defenseless, to establish justice, we stand in the historic tradition of William Wilberforce, Abraham Lincoln, Harriet Tubman, and the nameless thousands who fought against and died fighting slavery. We stand in the historic tradition of Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks and the Civil Rights Movement. We are fighting the great human rights struggle of our day. This is the civil rights and social justice battle of our time. We are fighting for human rights for human beings. I'm indebted to my friends Dennis and Carrie Stevens, who are here with us tonight, for a reminder of what personhood really means. A few short weeks ago, their son, Robert Bodring Stevens, was born still. They called him Bobo. The funeral for precious little Bobo was one of the most remarkable events I have ever been to. Placed at the front of the sanctuary was a heartbreakingly tiny casket. The church was full of a Washington, D.C. crowd. In every direction you looked, there were people of power and influence, sorrowfully paying tribute to a tiny baby and his family. Bobo's older brother and 4 sisters sat in the front row, each wearing a beautifully tied blue ribbon bracelet. A person's a person, no matter how small. When I talked with Carrie about sharing this story, even before I told her what I wanted to say, she told me that Bobo was a person to them from the moment they knew she was pregnant and even before. The line to greet Dennis and Carrie following the service was long and patient. There were few dry eyes, even among the men. Every day in this country, every single day, we lose 4,000 babies to abortion. Every day, day after day. That's monstrous. Each one is uniquely created like Bobo, but there are no caskets, no blue or pink ribbons. Being part of that achingly painful, beautiful ceremony showed me in a way I had never fully realized before. Abortion uniquely undermines human community. It tears apart the heart of human compassion. By memorializing their son, by reminding us all of his personhood, by giving the community the opportunity to mourn with them, Dennis and Carrie and their children set a bulwark against the encroaching dehumanization of the culture of death. I will always remember those blue ribbons. Ribbons for remembrance of a person well loved. They were a gift from a mother to her son. Mark well, they were also a gift. They were also a gift from a courageous woman to her community. They demonstrated what it means to be fully human. In our confrontation with the culture of death, the soul of womanhood is also at stake. A century ago, Dorothy Sayers was asked to address the question of what it meant to be pro-woman, and her response was to ask a cheeky question. She asked, "Are women human?" You might think that the answer is self-evidently affirmative. Of course women are human. But look around today. Look around. It's a sad irony that a movement that was supposed to elevate women so frequently devolves into vulgarity. Being a feminist in this century has required signing on to defining down feminine virtue and endorsing abortion as a sacred right. Dorothy Sayers argued that we err in asking how women are faring relative to men. Rather, we should be asking, how do we all fare, all of us, men and women together in the human community? Otherwise, ironically, women still remain as the other. Without a deep reverence for our common humanity, the quest for empowerment is chasing after the wind. In that vacuum, in the place of nothingness, we find a twisted veneration of abortion. They have rooted women's power not in creating life, but in its destruction. On the campaign trail in 2008, President Obama argued that abortion is one of the most fundamental rights that we possess. And then he concluded, it is not just an issue of choice, but equality and opportunity for all women. Most people don't know that this truly appalling idea is also now putting down roots in our law. In the 1992 Casey decision, Justice Kennedy wrote that we must maintain Roe because women have come to rely on it for our place in society. Here's what he wrote. For 2 decades of economic and social developments, people have organized intimate relationships and made choices that define their views of themselves and their places in society in reliance on the availability of abortion. The ability of women to participate equally in the economic and social life of the nation has been facilitated by their ability to control their reproductive lives. And while the effect of reliance on Roe cannot be exactly measured, neither can the certain cost of overturning Roe. In this one thing, Justice Kennedy is correct. The effect of relying on Roe for place in society cannot be measured. But there is also a certain cost. Frederick Douglass once remarked that no man could put a chain about the ankle of his fellow man without at last finding the other end fastened about his own neck. There is indeed a certain cost to the endurance of the culture of death. Part of the true cost of this counterfeit empowerment ethos is the loss of a vision for authentic feminine power. 2 years ago, shortly before Easter, I began chemotherapy treatment. The night before Easter, a woman showed up on my doorstep with 5 Easter baskets, 1 for each of my children. That woman was Babo's mother, Carrie Stevens. That's the kind of woman who is a builder of community, of common concern and protection, and that's the kind of woman that I want my daughters to grow up to be. We have to pursue the mission before us to see every person welcomed in life and protected in law, because the culture of death tells our daughters something else entirely different. Our oldest daughter, Hannah, who is a freshman at the University of Virginia, tells us that there is a popular graffiti wall on campus. Across the top it says, "Before I graduate, I want to," and then students scribble their answers in chalk. One person wants to travel to the moon, another wants to sing in the amphitheater. Another one just wants to sleep. That was me. But then another person wrote that before graduating, they wanted to end abortion. But someone else came along and struck through it. Then they scrawled "have an abortion" underneath it, and someone else then checked that aspiration off the list. Done. Accomplished. I dissent. 4,000 a day, every year, every day. Planned Parenthood alone each year destroys over 300,000 lives. That's more than my hometown of Lexington, Kentucky. I dissent. We stand in a long line of historical dissenters, advocates for social justice, some of whom succeeded quickly and others gave their lives. If it takes 40 more years, I will still go. Will you come with me? A paraphrased quote attributed to G.K. Chesterton tells us, "Fairy tales are more than true, not because they tell us that dragons exist, but because they tell us that dragons can be beaten." The culture of death is a dragon that must be defeated. We are working to defend human rights for human beings, and we are accumulating victories. We are developing momentum, and we are restoring a culture of life in America. Thank you so much for being a part of that movement and helping to make everything that AUL does possible.